your website should be your number one sales rep. They never sleep. They don't ask for time off. They don't need to take a cold plunge every morning. And companies spend a lot of money to get people to come to their website. When I say website, I mean anything. Landing page, homepage, paid landing page, all of those things. Sign up for a webinar, B2B context. Those are all landing pages of sorts. They spend a ton of money. By the way, it's not unusual for B2B company to spend $100,000 a month just on paid search, what we call PPC ads, pay-per-click ads.
You're listening to the B2B Revenue Executive Experience, a podcast dedicated to helping executives train their sales and marketing teams to optimize growth. Whether you're looking for techniques and strategies or tools and resources, you've come to the right place. Let's accelerate your growth in 3, 2, 1.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the B2B Revenue Executive Experience. I'm your host, Cory, and today I'm talking to Sahil Patel. He's the CEO of Spiralyze, a company specializing in predictive CRO and data-driven landing page optimization. Now, prior to Spiralyze, Sahil was the CEO and founder of ER Express, which he led for 11 years before successful exit in 2021. With more than 23 years of experience in sales, ops, software development, and finance, Sahil has worked with renowned organizations such as Netflix, Podium, the NBA, Lowe's, Harvard, and Gusto. He specializes in landing page conversion optimization, running over 130,000 A/B tests for clients, and offers unique insights into best practices for efficient A/B testing. Now, outside of work, he also pursues his passion for music through a Rush cover band, and he's got some original work with an EP dropping this summer. Sahil, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me, first of all, and thank you for such a glowing introduction. That'd be great if just like whenever I enter the room, I could just press a button. It would be really bad for my ego. Very, very narcissistic of me, but I got to tell you, it sounded good.
Oh, thank you. I think we could work on it. You know, I could do the voiceover, and then you could create maybe your own theme music, and we could just cue that up.
I think we play Tom Sawyer. That's what it would be. You just have that opening riff, and then like I'd walk in, and then we'd have your talk track booming through the room.
I love it. Awesome. I love it. So speaking of, talk to us about the band. Help us get to know you. Where did your interest in music come from? Why Rush?
That's great. That's what. Yeah. If anyone here is listening for B2B revenue advice, you're sorely disappointed. We're just going to talk about Rush cover band. I've done music for a long time since I was like, I think 14. I started learning how to play, kind of self-taught, then took some lessons, took it from there. Played in cover bands, starting out like most people, then started to do some of my own stuff. My freshman year of high school, the guy next door, his name is Wayne Robbins. He was a senior in high school, and he had a car, which meant I got to ride with him to school, which instantly elevated my cool points from like -20 to like, I don't know, +1. And he had it, by the way, this is a big deal in 1992. This is, you guys will guess how old I am. 1992, he had a 6-disc changer in his trunk, okay, in his Acura Integra. That was incredible. And the first 2 slots were always Chronicles, which is the Rush greatest hits set. And I'd never heard of Rush. We played, and I was like, oh, who is this? And I was like, man, their singer, she sounds great. And he was like, it's not a lady, that's a dude. I was like, what? I was like, who is this? And like, I picked up the jewel case. He's like, Rush. I was like, what is this? So like every day on the way to school, we listened to Chronicles. I learned a lot of the Rush hits that way. And he was a drummer also, like you. And he played in bands. And that was, I wouldn't say that was the only thing. Definitely in Wayne, if you're out there, I haven't seen him in forever, but he was definitely like, I looked up to him and idolized him. And that was one of the things that got me into playing in bands. And that was my introduction to Rush.
That's an awesome story. It's funny how, I think looking back, how formative the trip to the school and the trip away from the school, whatever form that took, can have years later. It's kind of fascinating.
Totally. I was 14. I mean, those were definitely formative years.
Oh, well. Okay, so I had to ask, and we'll shift back for the audience is still here.
Rush. I could talk about that all day.
Well, we'll go back into revenue leadership land just for a bit, and maybe we'll circle back around.
Cool.
So you've spent over 2 decades, working across ops, sales, and SaaS. So what initially drew you to this world?
You mean the kind of the marketing technology and CRO world,
Yeah.
Cory?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's an interesting story. At my last company, ER Express, which actually was a form of MarTech, it was patient acquisition software. You can book an appointment, you can fill out your paperwork, you can sign those consent forms all from your form. And we sold it to clinics and hospitals to help them bring patients in the door. So the natural buyer was the marketing department of the hospital. And their main job was to bring patients in the door. Early on, I was 2 or 3 years into the job, and I met the founder of Spiralyze, the company I run now. And he opened my eyes to conversion rate optimization, this idea that you can A/B test your way, show your audience 2 different versions of a page, see which one gets more people to convert. Can mean a lot of things. They could be putting a pair of Nike shoes in the cart. It can be saying, hey, I want to come in at 2:00 tomorrow to get the a strep test. It could be, I'm looking for enterprise cybersecurity software, and I'd like to see a demo. All of those things. Those are examples of conversions. And you can either take a bunch of wild guesses, or you can systematically test one version versus another version, and kind of like a March Madness bracket. Like you test different things and you see which one wins. And I was like, well, I kind of got it, but I was like, oh yeah, I can see why like Amazon would do this. If you can get one more person a day to put those Nike shoes in the cart, it's worth a lot of money. And he opened my eyes. He's like, no, you're doing this thing. If more people book appointments, isn't your software worth more? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, well, have you thought about, should you ask for their name first or their chief complaint, like why they're coming in? And I was like, well, maybe. I mean, I can kind of get my head around why that would matter, but like, how would I, he's like, you should run that as a test. And he's like, what about the form? Have you thought about the format? Because you've got these drop down things. Like, what if you turn those into radio buttons? I was like, well, he's like, that might get you an extra 3%. I was like, look, if I do that, he said, over and over and over, I'm helping my hospitals bring more patients in the door. That is the fundamental value prop we do. So we were testing it not on putting shoes in a shopping cart or getting people to buy the software. We were getting them to use it in this classic marketing technology sense. That's how I was an early Spiralyze customer. I saw the product. I saw how it worked. I used it. I sold that business. I ran for 10 years, sold it, stuck around for a year, and was thinking about what's the next thing I wanted to do. The founder, his name is Gajan. He's here in Atlanta. That's where I live. We had stayed in touch, and he had built the business just purely organically. And he was looking for a partner to help him take it to the next level. And he's good at some things. I'm good at some things. I knew it worked because I'd been a customer. And so I came on as CEO. He's still here. He's more on the kind of the creative and ops side. And that was 3 years ago. It's been really good.
Wow. That's quite the journey from customer to CEO.
Yeah.
It makes sense that if you're a fan of the product, if you're a brand advocate, might as well get in when you can.
Yeah, there's somewhere floating out that is actually on video me doing a testimonial for Spiralyze, and it's a little embarrassing to watch, but it's there.
That's funny. Okay, I was struck when you were talking that you mentioned your first examples were like Nike, right, and then going back to Amazon. Okay, we got one more sale, one more pair of Air Jordans in the cart, out the door. We do that 50,000 times. That's a massive increase for us. However, I think there's a little bit of a divide there. Some B2B companies, they might think, oh, we're going to A/B test our emails, or we're going to, maybe work on optimizing our product pages, but maybe they don't quite understand how to really optimize landing pages in the same manner. So I guess my question then becomes, what do you believe are like the most critical practices for optimizing landing page conversions in a B2B context?
Yeah. So wonderful question. Here's how I would put it. Broadly, your website should be your number one sales rep. They never sleep. They don't ask for time off. They don't need to take a cold plunge every morning. And companies spend a lot of money to get people to come to their website. But when I say website, I mean anything. Landing page, homepage, paid landing page, all of those things. Sign up for a webinar, B2B context. Those are all landing pages of sorts. They spend a ton of money. But it's not unusual for B2B company to spend $100,000 a month just on paid search, what we call PPC ads, pay-per-click ads. And they're spending real money on Facebook to send them traffic, or Instagram or TikTok. I mean, there's a bunch of LinkedIn ads, people running LinkedIn ads, people running Reddit ads. And the idea of like A/B testing the ad is well established. You should do it. Try different divergent ads, see which one performs. An amazing number, by the way, probably somewhere around 70 to 80% of B2B companies don't A/B test their landing pages. So they make changes based on gut instinct. Now, some people's instincts are quite good, but as someone that this is all I think about every day, at least half of the time I'm wrong. Like I'll look at an A/B test that we're running with one of our customers and I'll say, that one's got to win and it won't win. So just going with your gut, I would say best case, you're as likely to help as hurt your chances of getting more people to convert. And in the long run, if you're consistently A/B testing, you can create, not only are you, of course, getting more people, more customers, but you're lowering your CAC, your cost to acquire a customer, and you can create a wedge between you and your competition. If you can consistently acquire customers for 60 cents for every dollar of revenue, and it costs your competitors 70 cents, 10 cents may not sound a lot like to everyone. It makes a huge difference in the economics of the business. So that's why you should do it. Yeah, why should you test your land? Now, how should you test? You could test random things, or you could test ideas that have worked for other companies like you. I think the best analogy I would give is if you went to the doctor and said, oh, my stomach hurts, and he gave you some medicine, and you said, oh, what is this? I've never heard of it. They didn't give you like the usual stuff. They give you something. What is this? Oh, I made this myself. Have you like tried it? Yeah, I gave it to my neighbor. She said it worked out great. Okay, did your neighbor like have the same symptoms as me? Like, how'd you figure out the dosing? Because I don't know, maybe I'm taller or I'm smaller. Like, does gender matter here? Like, I also have diabetes. I'm just making some fun. Like, I have diabetes. Does that matter here? We laugh, right? That's like kind of pre-scientific medicine, leeches, stuff like that. Although some people say leeches actually work. That's how a lot of people build landing pages. What should we put? Let's look at 3 of our competitors. By the way, it's not doing research. You should see what's out there. The CEO said we should put a picture of his dog on the helmet. We hire design agents, but nothing wrong with design agencies. Design agencies can get you something that looks great, and something that looks great definitely aesthetically will help. But if you don't measure the impact, you just don't know. And it's as likely to help as to hurt. So a better way, think about going to that same doctor and you ask the same question. The doctor says, well, here's the thing. This has been through an FDA drug trial. They gave it to 10,000 people. We randomly split men, women, young, old. They all had similar symptoms to you. And 70% of the time they got better. It's not a guarantee, but I would probably feel pretty good about taking that. That's the best way to A/B test, is if you have some data that shows it works for others. So now I kind of use this construct of, well, is that person that took the medicine like me, my gender, my health profile? The same thing is true for A/B testing. Like, is this a paid landing page or is this organic landing page? By the traffic usually has very different characteristics. Is this even a B2B type of page? And is a call to action like is it what we call product-led growth, PLG? Is it a free trial sign up, or is this a webinar sign up? Is this an ebook? Is this a talk to a sales rep? Because all of those variables impact what is most likely to work for your audience.
That's such important advice too. I want to zero in on the instinct aspect. When you're talking about marketers and when you're talking about the doctor, so like, oh, I guess my neighbor, she's still alive. Or like, I think it's a good idea.
Yes. Oh boy, good ideas.
And it's so strange because when you think of it from a revenue leadership perspective, I think that some companies and some cultures within companies are much more likely to give leeway to the creative side of the house, to marketing, right? To design. Like, okay, well, they have good instincts. They have experience. They have a good track record. We'll let them on an instinct. But if you were in the sales side of the house and you said, came to forecasting and you're only data point when you go to a sales manager. Oh, I've got a really good feeling about this one. It happens, but I think we've systematically kind of shut that down, right? We have qualification tools, we have methodologies to kind of say, no, there's data behind this, and here's where we're leading. So what I'm getting at is, if you do, when you first come to help an org, or you're talking to them, and you see a marketing organization that's operating more on instinct, how do you get them to kind of make that mindset shift? And what are the first few foundational principles of A/B testing that you want to get them going on?
So I think the first thing is to show them data on what has worked and not worked for other companies like them. That's the first thing. The second thing is to get them to understand the enemy is not an A/B test that loses. And by lose, I mean the challenger or variant fails to outperform the original version or the control. The enemy is not running any tests. So I think if you can get on board with the idea that you get better outcomes if you test the results before you roll them out, I don't think that's so controversial. And you then let the data be your guide on what you should do. By the way, I don't think it should be an absolute guide. You have to balance the brand voice, the brand identity. I think if you kill that, maybe you get some short-term gain, but I don't think that's necessarily long-term sustainable, because you end up with this like mishmash, and the user journey ends up feeling really disjointed.
That's a good point. I think that's...
So you can't just say, well, let's throw out the brand identity. Your website still needs to be on brand, right? But I'll give you an example. Many landing pages have long walls of text, and the data is super clear, easy to skim, bullet pointed text, outperforms, long wall of text, 3 or more lines. Now, we're not writing in a way that your 10th grade English teacher would like, but on the web, there's a big reward for skimmability, and there's a big penalty for a lack of skimmability. Now, let me say, I've never run into a company say, yeah, our brand voice is long, boring wall of text.
Sure.
No one says that. So I think you can do bullet points. You can make it easy to skim. You can do things like visual cues, like bolding keywords, using little icons as bullet points to increase the skimmability. But you can write it in a tone that is still, if you're selling into hospitals, there's a certain way of talking that will resonate with the hospital audience. If you're selling to auto dealers, there's a certain way, a tone of talking that's going to resonate with an auto dealer very differently than like a hospital CFO. So I think that's a way to take a principle, which is easy to skim copywriting, but still put it in a way that's true to the brand voice.
I love it. That's a very succinct way to put it. And so kind of backing up and looking at the broad picture, right? You just mentioned, right, auto dealers, healthcare, and how you have to be true to that brand voice, but also there are certain foundational principles that have been proven true again and again and again. And I mean, you yourself, you've run over 130,000 of these tests.
Just to be clear, I haven't personally constructed and run all these tests.
We're
talking about Spiralyze over its entire existence.
Yes,
has run. So we're speaking for the company Spiralyze, not Sahil Patel.
Yes,
individually run.
For sure. My mistake. Yeah, the company as a whole.
I get what you mean.
Yeah,
we've been responsible for a body of testing data.
It's an impressive volume, right? So I guess what I'm getting at is, what are the key insights that you've learned over the course of all of those tests when it comes to, obviously optimizing just for the ebook download, but also optimizing for long-term growth?
I'll give you 3 principles and then maybe some examples. So just broadly speaking, one is run lots of tests. The more tests you run, the better you get at running them. It's much like if you watch like people who play professional poker, like all of them play all the time. Like they basically, I mean, they're not literally playing all the time, but they're not like, yeah, one day a week I play poker. Like even when they're not on like the World Series of Poker, they're playing a lot. The second is take big swings, which testing, the classic thing everyone thinks of A/B testing is like, oh, we'll take a blue button, we'll take an orange button, we'll see which one gets more conversion. And look, if you've never tested anything, that could be worth the try. Let me also say there's actually very low predictive power that the color of the button will predict the winner. Now, what we do find is a high contrast button generally outperforms a low contrast button. So if you have a light blue background, you have an orange button, it probably will perform like a blue button against a blue background. also like, it's kind of a no duh. Like, should you really spend time testing it? You're much better off testing especially in B2B where you have lower traffic. You need a bigger detectable effect. I mean, geek out on the stats here a little bit. The effect size means you get to an outcome faster. Could be a win, it could be a loss, but that's what you want to do. You want to get to an outcome and then kill the losers, keep the winners, and test against it. The third thing is if you can test ideas that other people have tested, it's a cheat code because you're going to skip some of the dumb tests. So if you know something's already worked, and I'll give you some examples, but even if it's anecdotally, your friend tested this, at least it's been tested versus, hey, let's go look at 10 websites that we think are great and just make our homepage look like their homepage. Because that is not sustainable and probably won't get you much lift. Specifically mimicking. Now, if you look at them and say, oh, in our sector, there's a clear visual hierarchy that tends to perform well. Now we're going to take that and put it through a set of A/B tests so that the product imagery, the copywriting, the social proof fit in that visual hierarchy. That is a good way to copy people. Okay, let me stop there. I'll tell you about some actual specific A/B tests, but just does that help answer, shed some light on kind of a good way to go about doing it?
Yeah, no, it does. That's a great high level way to look at it.
So here's an example, 2 really quick examples. And I like to do things that everyone who's listening can go back and do it immediately on their own website. First one is show the product. So it's amazing how many B2B websites use stock image. And I have a phrase called happy people hurt conversions. So these stock images, people they got their arms folded or they're looking at a device and they look so happy. They're like, what are these people doing that makes them so happy? And why does anyone think that's going to help convert? It just, what our A/B tests show over and over and over across hundreds and hundreds of A/B tests across millions of individual website traffic visits is that in B2B, particularly B2B SaaS, but by the way, just generally B2B, showing the product a single crisp image beats happy people. Because why did they come to your website? Because they want to know something about your product, so show them the product. It's the equivalent. If you run a car ad, you're going to show the car. Then you're going to show lifestyle stuff with the car, people having a great time, going camping, picking up the kids at carpool. But the car is somewhere in that commercial. If you didn't, it'd be really weird.
Yeah, no, it matches too, because I was doing another interview this morning with 2 sales trained experts. And, what they were talking about is how both buyer and seller, their happy place, their comfortable spot is in the solution box, right? The seller's enthusiastic about the product. They want to talk about it. The buyer, they want to see the product. They're comfortable talking about the product. Now, we obviously want to push them out of that probably to learn more about their problems if it's a good fit. But yeah, it makes perfect sense because that's where everyone is naturally kind of gravitating toward.
Yep. The second one is the 1-second test. So take your homepage, right click on your Chrome browser, choose Google Translate, put it in a language that none of your friends speak. So if you're here in the US, Arabic or Urdu or Hindi, okay, take that screenshot, show it to 5 people who don't work at your company and just see if they can guess what your company does. And I mean, categorically, not this is billing software for restaurants with 7 or more locations. I mean, just this is a software company or this makes billing software, just something really broad. It's a great test of how much lifting the copyright is doing versus the imagery. And if you have the right balance, they should be able to guess something this is some kind of software tool or whatever based on the imagery. And if your imagery is stock images or it's just really vague and the copywriting is doing all the heavy lifting, they won't be able to guess at all because they'll be in another language. It isolates the effect of the copywriting. And what we know is your brain processes images faster than words. So if you can convey through imagery and then complete the understanding through the copywriting, that's how you hook people. You get them to spend long enough that they'll be okay, I get it. Now let me check it out. But if you put too much of a cognitive load on them and they're trying to figure out what the hell does this thing do? What is this? You lose them. There's like two great things. You don't have to run A/B tests. You don't have to buy software. Everyone can do these things at home and get some insight.
I love it. It's extremely actionable. And I have kind of a curveball follow-up to this, and where my mind is going is, what about the B2B companies that sell like high cost, high value intangibles, like the big research firms, things like that, where it's like, a screenshot of a PDF isn't going to exactly do the same things as a screenshot of a really slick MarTech product.
It won't, but show like the output of the report. Like my guess is somewhere in the report, there's a stunning visual. Pick whatever that wow moment is and make that your visual. But I'll take your question. People often ask the same question, like, well, does this work for like pure services that don't even have like a report? Like, does this work for like HVAC repair? And the answer is yes. And we actually ran this for an HVAC repair company that was a client of ours. And on the original version of their homepage, they had like a mom, 2 kids, and the idea was, look, we're showing the happy customer because her HVAC got repaired and everyone is happy. And what we tested against it was a picture of the HVAC repair person in the uniform. The background image was the clearly labeled truck, and they looked professional. They were clearly showing up at your home. They were smiling. They were experts. That's what you expect to see. That's the product, the service person that's going to deliver the service. And it turns out we ran that test. They got a huge lift just changing that imagery around.
Oh, that's impressive. So if you do have a company out there that's listening right now and they love the 1-second tests, they love all your advice so far, and they're looking to get started, when they do start setting up their testing, what are the metrics that they should be keeping an eye on and tracking?
Yeah, I think there's 2 big things you can look at. The first is, can you get more people from your existing traffic to convert on page? By that, I mean, they're filling in some kind of form. They could be in a direct consumer context. That's usually something like putting the shoes in the cart. In a B2B context, that's usually filling in that talk to sales, get demo form, or signing up for that free trial, or a webinar, or an ebook. Those first 2 are considered high value conversions. That's the first thing, because if they don't do that, like, you just have nothing. The second thing you want to measure is, are those form fills turning into qualified sales leads, right? Because if you let's say you're selling big enterprise cybersecurity software, it has a 6-figure price tag, and you get 100 more people to sign up for it. If it turns out like Sahil's Laundromat is one of those people filling in the form, there's no value there, right? That Sahil's Laundromat is never going to buy your 6-figure cybersecurity software. So you want to score the lift. You can't just say, oh, we got more form fills. You have to make sure you're getting lift in form fills from the people who are likely to buy. Now, if you have a direct-to-consumer product, like, again, I'll just go back to Nike shoes, you know almost right away that they either purchased or they didn't purchase. There's some nuance there, but you really know pretty quickly. In the world of B2B software, where there's a long consideration cycle, like you got to schedule a demo, you got to talk to an AE, there's a whole bunch of things that happen in the buying process. And typically 6 to 10 months later, you know if they bought or not. It's very time consuming and expensive to run an experiment for 10 months, because it means like maybe you run 1 or 2 tests in the entire year. So what you do is you measure the lift on page, and then you look for intermediate markers of quality. So the first thing you can look at is, okay, when you compare the control variant, the group that got the placebo, and the variant, the group that got the different version of the page, just look at how many of them fit the like on paper characteristics, like their head count or their things that you can just look at them and be like, these are clearly qualified or disqualified. Because if that's not working, something's not right. You can then look, are they booking meetings? Are they showing up for meetings? Once my AE talks to them, does she accept the lead? They call it sales accepted lead and use a little bit of jargon there. You should look at those and score each cohort, control versus variant. So that's how you make sure the lift is real.
That's excellent advice. I love it. Okay, I want to back out just a little bit here and kind of look at the broader picture, because, I mean, Sahil, you've obviously founded a company and that was a success. Now you went from customer, brand advocate, to CEO at Spiralyze. Talk to us a little bit about your leadership philosophy and a couple of key moments that have really, shaped that over the year.
Okay, so maybe just the context for people joining us today. I've run 2 companies as CEO. One is founder. One was a much smaller company than the one. So Spiralyze is about 200 people. ER Express is about 20 people. So just order of magnitude, like you're just solving for different problems once you get to about 200 people. Now, how do you run a 2,000 person or a 20,000 person company? I have no clue. I've worked at big companies, by the way. I've worked at 2 publicly traded companies. So like I have a concept of what that's like, but like to actually run it, I don't know. I think at 200 people, like I don't know everyone that works here. Like I just can't. I try to, but the likelihood that I will personally know everyone is really, really low. So that's just like, it's different. Like when you have 20 employees, like you're not just leading through like direct influence, like you can actually one-on-one talk to every single person and just through sheer force of will kind of, now you may be totally wrong, steering the car right off the road, but you can do it. You can actually turn the wheel and the car turns. At 200 people, you can't do that. But I think that if I had to say the thing that has retained and worked for me is to resist the temptation to add lots of layers. Process formality is a tax, and you're going to pay that tax no matter what. But what you want to do is put off paying it as long as possible. So this is going to sound really weird, but like we don't do a lot of one-on-ones. We don't do a lot of meetings. What we try to do is create a place where people are doing really interesting work and that we've stripped out as much of the friction as possible. Because people, you talk about people being in their happy zone. Like I'm going to borrow from your interview earlier today. Like when are people in their happy zone? What we found is, and take this with a grain of salt, but people are in their happy zone when they're getting to do the work. Some work is very individual, like you do it on your own. Some work is you need people to collaborate to get to the output. But the maximum time you can spend on that, I think people get more satisfaction from the job. Everyone hates meetings. Everyone hates kind of one-on-ones for this. I shouldn't say everyone, I'm being absolute, but I hate meetings. I hate one-on-ones for the sake of that. It doesn't mean I don't have any one-on-ones or I don't do any of those things. But if you looked at my calendar, you would see, maybe compared to my peers, a remarkable absence of those kinds of, I call them internal administrivia.
That's intriguing. I don't think I've ever heard that before. And I think my gut jerk reaction is to agree with you. And at the same time, I have something pinging in the back of my brain, which is, I've heard it said often by, C-suite executives that, either you create the culture or it is created without you.
100%.
So how do you balance that of like really sort of guiding the culture and ensuring that people, do have like a sense of community and are collaborating when they need to collaborate while keeping all those meetings low?
Yeah. So I think it's by enforcing social norms on how we get the work done and how we interact with each other. And we definitely have a very strong set of norms of things that are okay and things that are not okay.
So what's an example, if you have one top of mind?
I mean, I'll just give a really simple one, which is lead with the answer.
Love it. Yeah, that's awesome. Not the problem, right? The solution coming first.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's okay to not have the solution, but like lead with it. It's a really good one because it means the person who is talking needs to think about it before they talk.
Yep. Makes a whole lot of sense. I want to come full circle with the leadership and the testing philosophy. So how can, if you're talking to other leaders out there in the B2B space, B2B companies, how can they sort of build a culture of continuous experimentation and testing to really fuel growth?
I think the first thing is, and this is going to run, I think, counter to what many people in the experimentation world espouse. There's a big temptation to over-index on learnings. And for those who are just listening, I used air quotes. When a test fails, it is very instinctive to ask, what did we learn from this test? And it's deeply unsatisfying to say nothing, except let's not do that again. That is actually the answer to why most tests fail. it didn't work. And instead of belaboring it, you should move on to the next test. This is actually true for the most part until you've run about 10 tests on a single page.
I love that. That's such good advice because everyone always pushes for the why. And a lot of people say, well, if we don't know why, then it's worthless. No, it's not. It didn't work.
No, you just ruled out that thing. Don't do that thing anymore.
And that has value. Yeah, I love it. Okay. As we move toward the end of the podcast, about 5 minutes left here. I want to be mindful of time. We ask every guest 2 questions.
I love it. Let's do it.
All right. And the first is, we're recording this May of 2025. So fast forward 5 years out to 2030. What is one major shift coming for the MarTech, the testing kind of side of things that a lot of people aren't talking about right now?
Well, everyone's talking about AI. So I think if you're talking about anything other than that, what is the shift in MarTech that everyone's not talking about? Oh boy, where would that be in 5 years? There are some verticals that are just overdue for consolidation. Like, if there's not a clear difference between you and your 10 competitors, probably not all 10 of you are going to be around. It's kind of a hard truth.
I think it makes a lot of sense. I don't hear many people talking about it. And yeah, the MarTech, the RevTech graphs just keep growing and growing. And the similarity, the daylight between them gets less and less. So, yeah.
Like, how many AI note takers does everyone need?
Exactly. And it seems like most people are running 2 on a meeting. I'm not sure why, but
they're running an A/B test, man.
There you go. It's right in front of me. I didn't see it.
I'm not kidding. We actually did that. We tried a bunch. And we'd invite all of them to a meeting, and then we'd look at the output to see which ones were more accurate.
Hey, that makes sense. That makes sense, though.
They were all about equally good.
Okay. All right. Good to know. Okay. Final question. Sahil, looking back on your own journeys, if you go back 5, 10, maybe even 15 years and give one piece of advice, career advice to your younger self, what would it be and why?
Get a professional therapist and get help before you need it.
Okay. I think that's awesome advice, especially for revenue leaders. Like, it's a high pressure job most of the time. Everything we see on LinkedIn is the rosy side of things. And that's really helpful to take care of yourself.
It's a tough job. The reality is you're going to live most of the time in the valley, not in the peak. The peaks come few and far between. There's a few, and by the way, if you find yourself on that rocket ship company, it's just up and to the right, it's all peaks. Awesome. You should do it. Like, just hang on. But for most of us, myself included, it's lots of ups and downs. And you got to actually learn to live in the downs.
For sure. All right. Well, this has been a fascinating conversation. Thank you so much for joining us. If people want to learn more about you, where should they go?
They should go on LinkedIn. I post 4 mornings a week at 7:30 a.m. and I have a game show called CRO Crimes. So if you think some of this stuff is interesting, watch my game show. We battle it out over landing pages. The winner gets $100 for their charity. It's a lot of fun.
I love it. I'm going to go check that out.
Thanks.
All right. Sahil, it's been great to have you. Thanks again.
Likewise. Thanks for having me on.
You've been listening to the B2B Revenue Executive Experience. To ensure that you never miss an episode, subscribe to the show in iTunes or your favorite podcast player. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.